Hello. So I thought today I'll talk a little bit about my process. Um, most of the things I make are made basically without a pattern. I have made myself some small pattern pieces, um, like drawn from. All my pants are made from two pairs of pants I copied. Anyway, I'm gonna start at the beginning and show you what really set this whole thing off. This is a stretchy dress. It's self-drafted. I have a dress form, you've seen it. I draped all the pieces. I have some of that Swedish paper. I made this 3.5 years ago, I think. And this is what set things off, right? When I made this, I had a lot of free time on my hands, and I sort of dove into a rabbit hole of sewing. So two colors, it's the same fabric in just in different colors. It's super comfortable. At this time, I started watching YouTube videos about historical sewing. One after the other. You know, if you watch one video, they just keep coming, right? So, Abby Cox, Nicole Rudolph, Morgan Donner, Mariah Patty is really what set this next stage off, with her video about making a shift chemise with rectangles and triangles. And that is when I decided to make this. This is rectangles and some I don't remember what this shape is called, whatever. But the basic thing is, it's what they did way back when. Fabric was narrow, it was expensive, you had to make every bit count, right? So you had a long rectangle, you cut that up into two smaller rectangles that would, wide enough to go over your shoulders and your boobs. And then you hopefully had some narrow strips on the sides that you cut into triangles, and you put to go over your hips, if you had any. And I made this very early on. Expensive linen, I ordered it from Germany. Didn't really have that much hips back then. So it's kind of straight. It turned out more like shapeless than I wanted, so I just added a dart in the back. But here's the little thing with in the armpits. It's what they used back then. A little square in the, can you see that? To make this, the sleeve not just be like a T, because you need this gusset to be able to move. And so this was an early project. I love this, still wear it, very comfortable, very lightweight. I made this one. This is actually more easy to see because it's two long pieces, a front and a back, and the triangle on the side in a different color. And then it turned out the hole for the head was a little big, so I made this. I filled it in a little bit, and I put a button there. I made some cuffs. They didn't turn out great, so I just redid them last week. Super comfortable. Also with the gusset thing, it's quite finicky, right? But I made this one. The green fabrics were thrifted. Tablecloths. This was just a piece of yellowed linen I found at the thrift store. Made it the same way. Gusset. Made the triangles quite big, so I made all these tucks to make it the right size, because I want to use all the fabric that I had. The hole for the head also turned out too big, but in a way, very different way. So I had to put this little piece of lace on. Still not really decent. Anyway, so I moved from there to, I believe it was this one. So I got this, was a delightfully orange tablecloth with holes all the way around the edge, and I just fell in love. And I wanted very much to keep these holes, which is why I just folded it, because you can have one long rectangle instead of just two smaller rectangles and sew them together on the shoulder. So I thought I just not cut it up, but just fold it. And this didn't quite think this through. This gusset thing, because I cut it at a 90-degree angle, that didn't work. So I had to put the gusset in. It was super finicky. I hated it. Also, when I washed it, after I sewed it, it shrunk so much. Also, the orange faded quite a lot. So then I had to rethink the whole thing. I really did want to just keep this holy parts around the bottom. So I cut the skirt and I just cut it up on the middle part, sort of. And then I used what used to be here to make this center part. This didn't turn out great. I pieced and I fiddled and I pieced and I fiddled for weeks, and it didn't turn out great. I've worn it once in, 2.5, 3 years. No, 2.5. I don't like it. I don't know what to do with it. Anyway, so the next phase I think was this one. This is the one that never really makes it out of my sewing area. This was just a piece of fabric, not sure what type. It's sheer-ish, and it's quite a small piece. This here is the, what's it called? The edge. It's very nice, clean edge. So I thought I'd just use that. And just a little bias tape on the edge. It's too short and too sheer to be actually worn in public without something underneath. But this is also just folded, a long rectangle of fabric folded in half, and then folded in half again. And you can see here, this has eliminated the need for the gusset thing. You just don't cut it at a 90-degree angle, rather to just do this curve. So this is basically what I use these days for my pattern for many dresses, right? And blouses, because it's just fits perfectly, really. And there's the slightest little curve that tells where the hip is, and then it just goes out. And like this piece of fabric was really small, and I used basically every piece, because I cut the hole out and I turned that into strips, which I used to bind this neckline. It's wrinkly, but I like to think of it as zero waste. So I do that, and I mean this, there's not much left. And this is actually how I think when I get my hands on a new piece of fabric. Let me just pause for a while. So I got this piece of fabric the other day. Don't really know what it is, but it spoke to me. It's a rectangle, like most pieces of fabric are. And what I do, even in the store, I unfold it, and then I fold it in half lengthways, and then I fold it a half again on the other way. So what I have here is 1/4 of the fabric, and I hold it up like this being the center front and center back. So potentially I could make something with this long a sleeve without having to piece anything, and this reaches almost all the way mid-calf. So, and then if it's a smaller piece of fabric, I mean, you can make a blouse, you can make the top half of a dress. The opportunities are endless, and you really do save on fabric when you don't cut it up. I mean, there's no seam on the shoulder up here, no seam, and there's no seam. I mean, the sleeve is, it's not a cut off piece of fabric sewn back on. Well, you do get some wrinkles in this area, but you know, I don't really care. And this thing that I'm wearing, it's actually a dress I made 6 years ago or something, for a concert with one of my choirs. It was an 80s theme, so I made it like a penguin style. If you're old enough, you remember those. It's the same principle, really, only the shortcut is greater in this area. And there's no seam up here, and I cut a hole with a boat thing like we used to wear in the 80s. And you know, so the step from this, which does have a seam on the shoulder, and the sleeve is a separate piece with a gusset. I don't think the step is that long. It's not a great leap. It's just a small step. And you can make so many great things. I have used this principle to make really long dresses. If you've seen my previous video of things I made last year, 2023 that is, last year, you see I made long dresses, I made short dresses, I made blouses, I made little jackets. It's the same principle. I just fold the fabric into quarters, and at the moment, I mean, I have made so many garments that I just put one on and trace or just cut. But I mean, if you haven't already got all these garments, I mean, you can use a store-bought garment for this. Just try to make sure it's the same kind of fabric, because this is stretchy and it behaves very differently from a woven fabric. So I wouldn't use this. Look, there's an ugly stain on it. Anyway, I wouldn't use this as a pattern, but I have used the white one, I believe, when I made the yellow one. Where'd that go? So I believe I used this, then folded in half like so, when I made this one, I believe. And I have made myself some patterns, templates for these holes, because I made some mistakes where the holes were too big and some were too small, some were not really decent. So where are they? So I made these. This says the smallest possible hole that is open either in front or in back. And this one is the smallest possible hole that I can just pull my head through. And the square neckline I love so much, because you do need some on the back. I'll show you how to use these in a video somewhere down the line. I actually think I'm done here today. Yes.